The economic turbulence of the 1970s demonstrated the increasing interdependence of economies around the world.
The world economy really was in turmoil throughout most of the 1970s and the early 1980s. The original monetary system coming out of World War II broke down. The OPEC cartel essentially took control of the energy market. The exchange rate of the dollar fell sharply on 4 different occasions during the 1970s. By the time of the early 1980s, we had the first significant breakout of trade protectionism in the United States throughout the post-war period.
We had gone into a world in which economics was going to be far more important as an issue in foreign policy. There was no institution of this kind to begin with, but it was the nexus between economics and foreign policy that, to me, helped define the unique need for this institution.
The Institute for International Economics quickly became a leading source of research on the overvaluation of the dollar and the resulting U.S. current account deficit.
I think John Williamson deserves a lot of credit in support of this notion. There is some value in preventing undue volatility in exchange rates.
The Institute's first book on lending policies of the International Monetary Fund provoked a strong reaction from a senior Treasury official, which led to public debate and extensive press coverage. In the 1980s, the Third World debt crisis and global macroeconomic imbalances became focal points for Institute studies.
Bill Klein, I thought, came out with the most intelligent, kind of thorough analysis of what was considered the Latin American debt or the world debt problem at the time. You know, in the 80s, when we did have a balance of payments problem and the dollar had gotten very high for a while, and there was a big government deficits and there was a lot of concern, articulated most clearly, repeatedly, and forcefully by Steve Maris. And I think had a constructive influence because it brought to the policymakers' attention that that was a danger.
The Institute for International Economics is the most respected voice on trade policy in the United States.
The Institute's been extremely important to me personally, and I think to the Congress and to the country, in helping develop a rational pro-trade policy. When I'm trying to work through drafting legislation, boy, where do I go first? I go to the Institute. Fred's and Morris and Nick, you know, they're the best when it comes to currency issues, and especially with respect to Asia.
You know, IIE has been in a position of really providing policymakers on the Hill with sophisticated work that doesn't fit a particular ideological viewpoint. And for that reason, the Institute's work has a credibility that's second to none.
I think the Institute's work did help shape thinking in the administration on how to go about the NAFTA, and the work done here made a difference. I think very fondly of the work of Jeff Schott and Gary Heffbauer.
Analysis by senior Institute researchers on the costs and benefits of international trade has become part of the Washington policy lexicon.
The Institute for International Economics has estimated that the integration of the global economy generates an economic gain of $1 trillion to the U.S. economy every year.
One of the most important recent contributions that the Institute for International Economics has had is in the debate on economic nationalism and protectionism. And the Institute and Fred have been strong advocates for the importance of an open investment climate in the United States and abroad.
One of the Institute's most recent books is on the Chinese economy and its potential impact on the rest of the world.
I think this book is a very balanced attempt to try to help the public understand what's going on and how should the United States respond to the changes in China. So I hope, the administration, the Congress, they want to read this book and think about it.
The Institute gears its research agenda to topics that it projects will be critical in the near term.
One of the things that has always astounded me about this place is they always have a book coming out about the subject that you just realized was important. It's part of the intellectual capital of Washington.
The Institute's publications have this ability to bridge both the academic and the business and policymaker worlds.
This is our primary source of economic advice outside of our own company. I can't imagine functioning in this town, trying to write about stuff like that, without coming to this institute.
C. Fred Berkston has directed the Institute since its beginning 25 years ago.
I'd like to say Fred is the most articulate economist I know. He's the most persuasive economist I know. He writes the most clearly, testifies most forcefully, very convincing in all presentations, but not always correct.
I think the IIE is a national treasure. Fred turned out to be a great institution builder. He had a great partner, by the way, in Pete Peterson.
For 25 years, my close friend and partner, Pete Peterson, has been the ideal chairman of the board of the Institute for International Economics. We could not have done it without Pete Peterson, and I say that recognizing every day of the 25 years how much I personally relied on it.
Tony Solomon served as chairman of the executive committee of the Institute's board of directors for most of the last 25 years, providing invaluable advice and guidance. In contrast to its modest size, the Institute produces a variety of studies each year. These studies are aggressively distributed and have a significant impact on policy.
The success of the Institute is due primarily to the staff that we have assembled over this 25-year period.
If there were an antitrust law against think tanks having all the really good people in all these related areas, I think the Justice Department would be coming down on Fred with like a ton of bricks.
Well, Fred has an outstanding way of drawing in excellent people, and he has established an absolutely first-class team.
Institute events serve as important forums for public discussion and debate.
Answering questions in an excellent way is very important, but the brilliance of the Institute is which questions it's posed.
Well, I think the Institute is one of the most respected think tanks in Washington and certainly on Capitol Hill. It is respected not only by our own Congress, but also by foreign governments.
The IIE has really unparalleled connections to the Treasury Department, to the Federal Reserve, to finance ministries around the world.
The reputation of the Institute in Europe is excellent. I'm at so many meetings, I was at so many meetings when in government where we pointed to publications of the Institute.
The Institute name perhaps is best known, perhaps in Europe and Japan, China, South Korea.
Generous contributions made it possible for the Institute to move into its own building in the summer of 2001.
The building makes a difference. It gives it a sort of an image of this is a place that is successful at what it does and is going to be around for a while.
This building is to international economics what the house that Ruth built was to baseball.
In 2006, as in 1981, the international economy faces macroeconomic imbalances that threaten global financial and economic stability.
The imbalances in those days were petty cash compared to what we're confronting now. Obviously unsustainable for any period of time. It's twice as high as we've ever had in this country.
I think the Institute is needed more today than ever before.
As it looks ahead to its next quarter century, the Institute has a rich and comprehensive research agenda to address global economic challenges.
There just is no area of international economics in which the Institute doesn't speak and doesn't have an impact.
If the Institute's saying something, let's listen, because it's going to be important and others are going to be listening.
If you're looking for feedback on trade, on international economic policy, this is the place to go.
As an American and as a citizen of the world, I feel we're lucky to have the Institute for International Economics.
The Institute's 25th anniversary provides an opportunity to reflect on its achievements.
Over the last 30, 40 years, I've had a kind of a checkered career. I've been unable to hold on to any one job very long. But I must say, one of my pride and joys is this Institute. I think it's been an unambiguous success, and I'm very proud to have been associated with it.